So our gathering hymn is number 389, Gathered Here. And we'll sing it through twice in unison, and then twice as a round. And this side will be starting first. So you can choose your own adventure. You can follow this side or this side on the round.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, scattered here from the struggle and the power, scattered here from the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, scattered here from the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near.
On a day like today, babies are born, we do laundry. Loved ones call. On a day like today, someone dies. You share a hug with a friend. We buy groceries. On a day like today, people take out the trash. There is war. The world spins on its axis. On a day like today, politicians argue. It's snowing over there, and there are fires over here. A friend goes to do yoga. On a day like today, all of life happens, and we gather here with each other. On a day like today, we light a chalice that will then begin a journey to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where this chalice will bless the ordination of our minister, Kristen Famula. These words are the words we will speak on that day. Will you say them with us?
This chalice, blessed by the Unitarian Church of Ogden,
comes from the shadows of the Wasatch Mountains
and brings our celebration and love for Kristen.
May the lights that we kindle be a prayer for spiritual health and happiness
for Kristen as she begins her journey as an ordained
minister.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Ogden. My name is Nitai, and I am glad to be your worship leader today. Thank you for joining us here today in this community that strives to be loving, inclusive, and compassionate. One way to connect with this community is by letting us know you're here. If you're new, welcome. We encourage you to fill out a newcomer card that is in the pew in front of you to drop in the offering basket as it comes by later. And if you've been here for a while, we encourage you to wear your name tags. Makes it a little bit easier for newcomers and some old timers with shoddy memory like me. Remember who you are. This helps everyone feel more connected and helps our newcomers to know us more easily. We love having people of all ages in our community. As you came in, we hope you saw the basket of activities for hands that like to stay busy out in the hall. This is for anyone, and we welcome all of the wiggles and sounds of a multi-generational family, except for cell phones. If you have your cell phone, please put it on silent. If you want to scroll through it, no one's going to judge. Just make sure it doesn't make any distracting beeps. We're so glad that each and every one of you are here. Welcome.
It was on a day like today, just shy of 5 years ago, that the World Health Organization declared the COVID-19 outbreak a pandemic. And much of the United States began shutting down in order to prevent the spread of this disease. 5 years ago, we experienced a surreal unfolding of new normals. Some people learned how to sew masks, and we learned about N95s. The store shelves were bare, especially of toilet paper and hand sanitizer. And we had to relearn how to wash our hands for the appropriate length of time. Public spaces had 6-foot distance markers. And remember when we worried that our mail could be contaminated or your groceries needed to be washed before entering the house? Do you remember all of that? We each have different COVID timelines. The first time you wore a mask, the first time an event in your life was canceled, the first time it dawned on you that the world was abruptly changing. And these realizations slowly led to a litany of heartbreaks. The fear of getting sick, the grief of losing loved ones to COVID, the intense sadness of not being able to be with each other in times of loss or celebration. There were so many individual heartbreaks that each added up to collective trauma. And then we added to that the uncertainty and the decision fatigue and the inability to have empathy because we were all so depleted. The predominant culture in the United States encourages us to buck up and move on. It's implied in our culture that acknowledging pain or reflecting or grieving are signs of weakness. But trauma specialists tell us that it is in the remembering, in the naming of impact, in the continued meaning making, that we integrate trauma in transformative, life-giving ways, rather than continuing to cause harm. And so on this 5th anniversary, we will remember our role as a community committed to the kind of spiritual care that makes space for truth-telling and remembering and acknowledging grief and lament. And there have been so many levels of grief since March 2020. There was that grief of the many levels of impact that we just named. There's the grief of the need to push to move on. And then on top of that, do you remember thinking during the forced isolation and social distancing that maybe this would change humanity for the better? Maybe this would be an opportunity for us to change for the better. Editor Shadi Hamid reflects, I remember thinking, he says, incorrectly, that our lives would be forever altered by this rare collective experience of trauma. In having so much taken away from us and the people we loved, that life was just distilled to its essence. And perhaps we would more easily distinguish between what truly mattered and what didn't. But it didn't last, and we returned to normal. And do you remember that during the pandemic, there was a strange sort of racial reckoning that happened? And people in my world that never expressed any interest in racial justice started showing up at marches and saying, Black Lives Matter. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, will the pandemic actually help us see our country's plague of racism as well? And now 5 years later, there's no need to give examples to you all of the contrast of what was happening then with this racial reckoning and what is happening today, because you know, we're living it. And so today we grieve not just those initial traumas and the lament of the lack of collective reconciling of this experience. We also mourn the place in us that thought that the experience might change us for the better, and then realizing the ways that it didn't. So we're going to sing a song together, and as we sing, I invite you to allow yourself to sink into your own feelings as you remember the last 5 years since the pandemic shut down.
I have been asked this morning to reflect on the effect of the COVID pandemic on UUCO, which is challenging because I never got a chance to know this church in the before times. All I see are the institutional ghosts and the empty spaces where something's missing. And I've heard of the old building, the A-frame on Madison Avenue. There was a parade when we moved in with banners and balloons, and it had a baptismal that some members of our congregation thought might make a better spa or sauna than dipping pool. And there's a spacious chapel that we had hoped we would one day fill that was carefully decorated with banners and flags made by the local community. There was a baby grand piano that sang with the choir, but now sits in a member's home. And I've heard about the basement where we had Valentine's Day dances and one time a square dance. And we used the building to create a safe space for others. Sorry. Where we invited queer kids to play games and get a hot meal. And where Family Promise set up beds for unhoused families, so that our church could be more than a sanctuary for us, but a shelter for all who needed it. And then, with no parade, just a series of votes and a frantic packing effort, it wasn't us anymore. We couldn't sustain it. And for a long time, I thought that that was how COVID had wounded the body of this church. But it wasn't. That was the side effect. Who here today went to meetings in the old building? 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 20. 20 people. When we went to that old building, how many people would show up on a Sunday? 50. 50.
30.
70. Whenever we did the 25-year anniversary, 150 people showed up. And today, there's about 20. And I had heard that the congregation had shrunk. The congregation is smaller now. That when we came back, we didn't all come back. But the congregation has shrunk does not capture the reality of our situation. The problem isn't that we used to be 50 and now 20 of them are left. The problem is that members of our community, our friends, are no longer with us.
There's 36.
36. We're getting closer. We are getting better. But the problem is that people can't be with us. They're still here. And maybe you see some of them when you're out shopping or at an appointment. It's just that they aren't here with us. They looked at their lives once the dust started to settle and decided that UUCO just didn't fit anymore. Families who came for kids had their kids grow up. Some older members continue to age and now have a harder time moving. Some people moved during the pandemic. And some, in isolation, looked at church and decided that it didn't work for them anymore, that it no longer sparked joy, which is wonderful for them. I do not think that you should stay with a church that isn't working for you. But even as we celebrate their journeys, we're still left with the echoes of their presence. And it's not just them, the members who left, who have changed the church. It's us too. Those of you who have stayed, and those of us who have come since then, who did not go to the old church. Yeah, that's a lot of people here. It's a substantial portion of the people here. It's us too who have changed. At first, we had no choice. The pandemic had forced us apart. For months, we gathered in little boxes on screens with our voices out of sync and our rituals flattened into pixels. And then, when it was finally safe to return, We thought we could simply pick up where we had left off, but something had shifted. And sometimes it feels like in the long stretch of separation, we forgot how to be together.
I want to offer a prayer through the words of artist and poet Jan Richardson. And after our prayer, her poem, I'm going to invite you to take 3 minutes of stillness to reflect on all that we've shared and all that's alive for you today. And then after 3 minutes, Nitai will ring a bell and you'll be welcome to come forward to light a candle or a stone, letting that ritual hold all of what is alive for you. And I know that 3 minutes can feel like a really long time when you're surrounded by other people. So the invitation this morning is to know that we are all human and that stillness does not mean silence. There might be feet shuffling, stomachs growling, throats clearing. And let your body just be your weird body without guilt. And in the stillness, I invite you to feel a spaciousness for reflection, especially reflection on the impact of a global pandemic for you and for your family and for those who are no longer with us. I invite you to let the griefs and joys bubble up. So here's Jan Richardson's blessing, and then we'll follow that with our 3 minutes of stillness. Now, more than ever, let us be the ones who will not turn away. Let us be the ones who will go farther into the wreck and deeper into the rubble. Let us be the ones who will enter into the places of devastation beyond belief and despair, beyond our imagining. And there, let us listen for the spirit that brooded over the formless darkness. And there, let us look again for the God who gathered up the chaos and began to create. Let us be the ones who will give ourselves to the work of making again and to the endless beginning of creation. Can we all just take a breath together? Five years ago, it's hard to believe, 5 years ago, some people had never heard of Zoom. And everyone just was scrambling to learn the technologies that would help them connect. And even though some churches had streaming options during that time, most of us 5 years ago had no idea how to create sacred space online. Next Saturday, almost exactly 5 years after many churches moved to fully online services for the first time, I will be getting ordained in Albuquerque with Zoom watch parties here in Ogden and in Reno. And it is almost unfathomable to think about that 5 years ago. It would have been almost impossible to imagine that. And I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's good that we can do this together. And the ability to connect virtually, of course, wasn't the only positive outcome of the pandemic. In the midst of the grief, there were so many ways that we lived differently, that were meaningful and beautiful. And on this anniversary, it is just as important to remember some of those moments so that we might carry those learnings forward as well. I remember walks through our neighborhood where we would wear our masks outside, and if we saw someone on the sidewalk, we would move completely to the other side of the road to give them enough distance to protect them. And then from across the road, we would call out greetings to these strangers as if they were longtime friends. I loved that it suddenly didn't feel embarrassing to offer care to strangers. We could just offer strangers love and care freely. I remember during the times of isolation that there was an intentionality around connecting with people. My extended family, who all lives all across the country, started a very silly practice of getting on regular Zoom calls with all of our loved ones to paint our nails together. It seems so frivolous and silly, but people I never used to connect with as regularly previously, I now had the time to give them my attention and care. And we did it with such intentionality, and it brought me so much joy. So many people started working from home during the pandemic. Many more did not have that ability. But for many of these people, this was a realization that they actually didn't need to be in an office. And this opened up our thinking that maybe there were other things that had become normalized and perhaps were a bit stuck or stagnant. And this revelation opened up possibilities for reimagining so many of the things that had felt like a given. I remember feeling the most immense love when I saw painted on all of the windows of all of the buildings in the town where I live, beautiful rainbows of hope. I don't know if you all had something like this in your town in Ogden or in the towns you all are Zooming in from, but I just remember going through the streets and seeing all of these rainbows of hope. It was such a beautiful showing of solidarity and shared experience. It felt so powerful. One editor, reflecting on this 5-year anniversary of lockdown, asked, "Did we learn the right lessons?" Looking back on it, did we learn the right lessons? And I think that the answer is probably yes. We did learn the right lessons. But the question is, did we internalize them? and let them change us long term? Did we learn the right lessons and internalize them and let them change us long term? Did we let the lessons change us for the better? And the beauty is, if not, it's not too late. As we honor this 5-year anniversary of one of the most impactful events of our collective lives, what lessons do we want to remember so that we might let them transform our lives even today?
Being together takes practice. Togethering is like a muscle, and it atrophies when it's not regularly exercised. So here we are, in the quiet aftermath of all that was lost, left with the question, how do we find our way back to each other? And we are remembering how to be together again. For the past several months, we've been doing fellowship hour over coffee once a month so that we can cultivate our community and rediscover why it is so wonderful to be together. We have found a way to rent space from another church so that we do not have to commit to the maintenance and the cost of having our own building that we simply cannot afford to support in our new reality. And as Kristen mentioned, we've learned technology. We've found ways to broadcast our service. So at first we could hold services at all, but it's grown so that even those who have moved away can participate with us every Sunday. Using that same technology, we found a way to collaborate and work with a minister who lives 2 states away. And so I invite you to look back on where this church was 3 years ago as we began to come back together. And I hope you'll agree with me that we are healing. But let me be clear, we are not trying to fix what was lost, because what was lost is human, and what's human cannot be replaced. Healing is not about restoring the past. It's about tending to the present so that we can grow into the future. Think of a tree after a storm. It does not regrow its lost branches exactly like they were before, but it finds new way to reach towards the sun. And that's what we are doing now, stretching towards what comes next. And as we do it, we carry with us the love, the laughter, and the care that built this community before the pandemic. But we're also making room for something new, a new way of gathering, new ways of belonging, new ways of being together. So as we move forward, let us not measure our healing by what we've regained, but let us measure it by the ways we've changed. Because we are growing, we are healing, and we are, I believe, becoming something new.
Third verse, and then you just put it back in the piano. It's over.
Every week, we collect an offering as a practice of gratitude for this community, filled with care and courage, love and resistance. We commit to keeping this community resourced for the ministry's head, both within our walls and beyond. And this week, we have a new way of giving. You may or may not have noticed on the back of your order of service, there is a QR code if you're more comfortable giving online. And as we practice new ways of giving, we're trying to find other ways we can support our community. And one thing that our congregation does in collaboration with First Presbyterian is sponsor a Girl Scout troop. And prices have gone up. It is becoming more and more expensive to become a Girl Scout, and not everyone is able to sustain that anymore. As a way of supporting these young women as they grow into the beautiful young women that this world needs, for the month of March, we are donating our plate cash to the troop to help them cover their costs of operation for the year. If I could have volunteers come forward to help me collect the offering. Thank you for your abundant generosity, both in this offering and all you bring to this church. We do have a few announcements today. The first is we had planned today on debuting our UUCO Church History Museum project. Unfortunately, life happened. It was not able to happen. However, we now have it scheduled for March 13th. April. Thank you. My brain is getting ahead of me. April 13th. So that is the first Sunday next month. Our minister, Kristen, should be here, and the service will revolve around the history of our church. And then we will invite you all to go experience some of the artifacts and history of our church. Also, next Saturday, it is finally here. Our minister, Kristen, is being ordained. We can then call her Reverend Kristen. It is happening in Albuquerque. We are having a viewing party here, as was mentioned. We plan to gather here in Geneva Hall at 1 p.m. so that we can have a fellowship snacks, refreshments, a reception, if you will. Party, yes, absolutely. Let's celebrate Kristen and our community. Afterwards, at 2 o'clock in this chapel, we will be streaming and watching the service there. And the other announcement I have, you don't need to make anymore. So with that, we're going to move on to the chalice extinguishing and benediction.
All right, so I'm extinguishing the chalice today because I will be joining Kristen along with Brett and Marilyn in Albuquerque next weekend, and we will be bringing our chalice. So I'm going to extinguish this chalice, and then we are going to remove it from our sanctuary as the first step in its journey to Albuquerque next weekend. All right, so we will extinguish our chalice in a different way today. As I said, as we sing our sending hymn, we will take this chalice through the aisle and out the back door. As it goes on a journey to Albuquerque, blessed by our congregation for Christian's ordination. As it passes through the aisle, you are invited to send blessings and love for its journey, for Christian's journey, and for the journey of this congregation. All right, so thank you all.